And we are live here on the Gretsch Afternoon Drum Break, episode number 36. Can you believe that already? Happy New Year, everyone. I'm just sorting things out here. I can't hear myself, but let's invite my guest. We have all the way from New York City today, I believe. We have Mr. Billy Drummond. On today's episode, I want to thank Paul Wells, a gentleman that I met while washing hands. Absolutely. Hi, Anthony. Hi, Mike. I met Paul over Instagram while interviewing several different guests. I think it might have been the Daryl Green episode from a few months ago now. And he suggested that I speak with Billy. And that was a few months ago. And I just wanted to check and make sure. Can I get a thumbs up to see if everybody can hear me okay? I don't hear me at all. Maybe you do, which would be awesome. I am going to see if Mr. Billy Drummond is on board here. Someone give me a thumbs up here in the comments. Hey, TJ, how are you? Nice to see you. Happy New Year to you. I want to thank everybody for tuning in regularly or even casually. It's what makes me want to continue to do this and speak to, awesome, thanks TJ, and speak to different Gretsch drummers from all over the world. Yes, you can hear me. This is great. I don't hear myself, but I'm going to see if we are looking for our guest today, Mr. Billy Drummond. It is just after 2 p.m. So I wanted to thank Paul for connecting Billy and myself. And I want to thank my friend Nicholas Lucero, all the way from New Mexico, who has been working diligently behind the scenes the last little while. Been extremely encouraging. He is the one whose team came up with the logo for the Gretsch Afternoon Drum Break and some other social media things. So before I bring Billy on, and he is ready to go, I can see him waiting in the wings here, got the headphones on, and man, this is going to be exciting. I cannot wait. If in the comments, just let us know where you are watching from. We would appreciate that. So I'm going to add Billy to this. Hey, how are you, Billy? Nice to see you.
Hey, how are you, man? Thanks for having me, and I'm hoping you can hear me okay and everything.
I hear you wonderfully. Thank you. Looking sharp. It looks like you have Max and Tony behind you.
Right. Yeah, I got my sources of inspiration all around me, and
Oh wow. Where are you now?
I'm at my house. I'm in my basement studio, my little man cave or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, but my whole house is sort of like this. But
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
try to keep the juices flowing.
Yeah, it's what keeps you young, and of course, on Wikipedia it says that you were born in 1959, and I'm looking at you, and I couldn't believe it when I saw that. I'm looking at pictures, scrolling, going, "There's no way. There's no way." I think the drumming and the music. You're thinking, yeah, I don't feel it. I feel, but the drumming and the music keeps you looking young, and so thank you so much for taking the time. I know that you're busy these days, and I think kind of just getting things kicked back into a routine over the last maybe this week or so.
Yeah. Well, I'm not. Well, I was busy today. Things just kind of like snowballed, and I had a faculty meeting and some other obligations this morning, and so it's like But it's cool.
Oh,
It's good to be busy. There's been a lot of groundhog days during this last 10 months, 11 months. So
isn't that crazy? What have you been doing since March? And I ask every one of the guests, and the answers are similar, and yet they vary a little bit.
yeah, well, I mean, when all this started, I had just come back from a tour of Denmark, and I got back home I guess March the 1st or 2nd, and then I had another week or two, no, another week of teaching obligations before spring break, and then I had some gigs, in town, and and then basically it all went haywire right just after that. So I got home just in time before the worldwide scare really got deep, and then I got home and played a few nights in New York, and taught, and then it all stopped, and basically I did, like everybody else that's in education. I immediately had to adapt to the Zoom and online, and so I immediately jumped into that, and with all its perks and whatnot, and got that together, and then finished out the remainder of the semester teaching online, and then the summer started, and of course there's no school then, and a few private lessons and stuff like that, and some live streams and some recording dates, and but that's basically been it. Oddly enough, I had a New Year's Eve gig, which is
Wow.
something that I haven't had almost since Y2K. They don't really exist too much anymore, at least here in the city and stuff. So I
Wow.
had a New Year's Eve gig, just playing just playing for like people eating in a retirement complex, and it was cool. It was great to
Yep.
play. That's the first time I played in front of an audience since March.
What a different feeling being able
Yeah,
to in whatever capacity it is, whether it's retirement community. It's beautiful to just play the drums with human beings and
exactly,
for human beings. I can't wait.
exactly. Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. Now, you started playing drums and music very, very young. You were, was it 3 or 4? Was it something like that you started playing drums?
Well, I've been told by those that were there at that time that it was around 4. But I quite honestly, I don't remember. Um, oh, that was my phone.
I love
Um,
that.
I'm sorry.
That's great.
That was my pal Kenny Washington, actually, the great
Oh,
drummer. Um,
yes.
but I'll call him back. But sorry about that.
Sure.
Yeah. But quite honestly, when I think about that, and I've been asked about that, I don't remember. I don't remember life before I started playing the drums. Like there was never. I can't go back to like a eureka moment when I
Wow.
saw somebody play the drums and said I wanted to do that. I've always played the drums as far as I can remember. I don't remember not playing the drums. So that might say something about my memory, or just say something about how much a part of the drums have been in my life. So, and everybody that knows me knows that I play the drums, whether they're musicians or not. It kind of goes, it's like, I'm a drummer. It's just kind of stamped on my chest or something, perhaps. I don't know, but I've been doing it a long time. Yeah.
Now, was music in the house? Is that how you were introduced to them?
Well, yeah, my parents were fantastic, and um, they had music in the house. My father had an unbelievably great record collection, especially looking back at it now, because the stuff that he had is the greatest stuff. And then my mother was also into music, and my father actually had been a drummer, but he had stopped playing by the time I came along, because of I think my mother was not into him being out late and all that kind of stuff. So he kind of gave it up to keep things cool at home. But
Smart man.
yeah. So, but remained. He remained a huge jazz fan, and he was the one who turned me on, to the drums, to the music, and actually to Gretsch drums. He's the first. That's the first name I ever heard of a brand of drums was from my father, because he had
I
a
like
set
your
of
dad.
Gretsch. Yeah, he had a set of Gretsch broadcasters, which there was no photographs of it,
Wow.
but he had a set of Gretsch broadcasters, which were, that was back in the
40s.
40s. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
Is that the drum set that you played on? Was that the ones in the house?
No, he got rid of them. I never saw them. I never saw a photograph of them. I never saw them, but he used to talk about them all the time. So no, I didn't have a set of Gretsch drums. I always wanted a set of Gretsch drums, but I didn't have a set of Gretsch drums until I could afford to buy them myself. And then I bought a set when I was about 19, maybe between 19 and 20. I finally had enough money to buy a set of Gretsch drums. Prior to that, I had all the drums that I had were made in Japan drums, and at that time,
Yes.
in the 60s and the 70s, Japanese drums didn't have the cachet that they have now.
Right.
Basically, you got Japanese drums if you couldn't afford a name set of drums.
An
So
American.
yeah. So my first three drum sets were. My first drum set wasn't even a real kind of a drum set, but I went through that like in a couple of months, and then they got me a set of Zimgar drums.
Wow.
I don't know if you ever heard of them. I don't know if
I
anybody's
have.
ever heard of them. Yeah, but
Yeah, but they're European.
no. It was Japanese.
They're
And
Japanese.
Japanese. They were called Zimgar, and actually on the badge it said Brooklyn. So I as a 7-year-old when I got them, I thought, well, these are made in Brooklyn, but I didn't realize they weren't. But they just put that on the badge, and then the next set I got was just said made in Japan. It didn't even have a brand name, and I played those drums for probably 10 years until I was old enough to and could afford a set of drums on my own, and I bought a set of Gretsch.
And
Yeah,
where did you grow up? Where was all this happening?
this is a place called Newport News, Virginia, which is like on the southeastern coast of Virginia. So it's surrounded by water and
Beautiful.
the Chesapeake Bay and the Atlantic Ocean and whatnot. Yeah.
Was there much in the way of jazz music there?
Yeah, there was a heavy music scene. Not well, healthy, a very healthy music scene. There were a lot of musicians that grew up in my neighborhood, kids that grew up in my neighborhood, and not necessarily jazz musicians at first, but then as we matured and got a little bit older, we started gravitating towards more jazz things, jazz music, because the music that we were into was heading in that direction anyway.
What were you listening to? What were you playing?
Well, it was like back then, there were bands, but the bands were musicians that played instruments, so it was like Kool and the Gang and Mandrill and Sly and the Family Stone and James Brown, of course, Hendrix and that sort of thing. And then that led us to other instrumental bands that were also, you could say, plugged in. And at that time, what was just beginning to happen was fusion music.
Yeah.
And so Mahavishnu Orchestra and Return to Forever and Tony Williams' Lifetime and all that kind of stuff was new. That was new, and it was virtuosos playing the same instruments that the people in Sly and the Family Stone and Kool and the Gang and Earth, Wind and Fire and Mandrill and all them
Right.
were playing, So it was just moving it up a notch, It was like, whoa, and all of those musicians in those groups were jazz musicians that had moved into another
Something
type of
else.
music that was akin to their age group and all that kind of stuff, So they were all in their 20s, but they had played with Miles and Freddie Hubbard and McCoy Tyner and the different people like that. But now they were because of what had happened, with Hendrix and Tony Williams' Lifetime and Miles.
Yeah.
The music was all new. It was all new. It was very new and very exciting. So we
What a
gravitated
time.
towards that. Yeah, it was a great time. It was really great because there was no boundaries. No one said, this is not good. This is good. It was just like, man.
A lot of it was really good, especially when you A/B it to a lot of the things that are sort of mainstream now. My wife listens to an awful lot of the new country stuff, and I've played a fair bit of that over my playing career as well. But I don't like that it is just so programmed, and so it's gridded. And I would much rather listen to 90s country when you had a groove, when it was played to a click, but when there were real drum sounds. I almost cry in the car when something like that comes on. And if anything resembling jazz comes on, my wife doesn't really like that. But as a musician and as a drummer, that's why I started playing drums. I'm not knocking the Nashville players. They are some of the most unbelievable musicians. But man, as a drummer, what turns me on? We've got Tony Williams back here. We've got Harvey Mason. We've got Miles. We've got all the greats, and I'm envious of you in when you were born, and just having that music, just to experience that and experience that as new. I just dove into that in the '80s and went, oh man, this was new to me then, and it wasn't new then. So
right, yeah.
And how old were you when you started playing in front of people?
Oh wow. Well, sort of right away. I mean, I had a pop band. You could call it a pop band when I was 8 or something like that. And then, we played, and then I was in other pop bands all through that whole period, and playing, just once it was weird. It's like, not weird. It was healthy because what was going on the stereo in my house was, Miles Davis and Jackie McLean and Sonny Stitt and Sonny Rollins and Art Blakey and all that. And then my sister, who's 6 years older than me, was into what she was into. So it was Roberta Flack and Gil Scott-Heron and all that. And then what me and my friends were listening to were like the people that I mentioned. And so, and then I was playing in bands, and we would play talent shows. And back then they used to have what they call block parties where, they'd have they'd basically block off the street and people would bring, coolers of stuff, and people would be cooking, bring a grill out in their yard and cook burgers and they, and then you'd set up and then there was a lot of musicians and kids in my neighborhood. I say kids because we were kids, and everybody could play. They were they might not be working professional musicians. Some of them might be a barber that plays the guitar who could play. They might be just somebody like that. And then there was a group of there's a family that lived like right around the corner from me, and they've gone on to become quite popular. Called the Wooten Brothers, and so we were all just best friends, and they were kids. They were a family band, a kid family band, kind of like, this is at the time when the Jackson 5 were a kid family band. So they were like that, or the Silvers or something like that, except they all were really accomplished musicians, especially at that age for that time. You know what I'm saying? And so, so me and the drummer, we were like, Heckle and Jekyll. We were tight. We were always at each other's house and listening to records. And there was another guy there, another drummer there in the neighborhood too. And so there, everybody kind of knew everybody, and we were all just into it, and it was great. It was healthy. It was great.
Did you have formal lessons as well, or were you just playing?
Later on, I did. I had formal, not drum set lessons, but snare drum, like classical and rudimental snare drum lessons with a great teacher down there named Win Winfrey, who was he was a great teacher, and he was into the real deal, the Fred Albright book and the Wilcoxon books and Portraits in Rhythm by Anthony J. Cerrone, all that stuff, Garwood Whaley, all those books. So that was great because I was also at the same time that I was playing drum set on my own in my neighborhood. I was also in the school band, the concert band, the marching band, the jazz, they called it stage band at that time.
Yeah.
Which was like, playing jazz, but that the music, the stage band music of that time was like Maynard Ferguson charts and Woody Herman and that kind of stuff, so I was doing that too. So, so it was, like I said, it was I shouldn't have said weird. It was a healthy time because there was a lot of stuff going on that was all, looking back on it, was all great. It was all really great.
And how old were you when you were working through those books?
That was probably 12, 13, 14, 15. And then my drum teacher, he had so many students that he couldn't handle all of them. So he got me to teach some of the students that he couldn't take, because I had already been with him for 3 or 4 years or something, So I got a chance to do some teaching as a teenager, and just people come and they want to learn how to play the drums, and you kind of show them how to hold the stick, show them, okay, you got to learn how to learn the rudiments, and that sort of thing. So yeah, that was happening.
Were you always playing traditional? On the videos that I've seen of you, you're playing a fair bit of matched grip in that left hand, and then I'll see you flip over to traditional grip. I'm wondering why.
Yeah, right. I think it's just, because I've always played a combination of matched grip and traditional grip. It's just because there's I don't know what you do. I don't know what you do and how you both. Yeah, you do both. It's just a nuance that one has that the other one doesn't have, that you can tap into as soon as you hold the stick that way. There's a nuance. There's a sound. There's a nuance. Your brain almost kind of changes a little bit because you're holding it this way, or you're holding it this way. So that's why I do it, and I don't think about it, and I don't put one over the other. There's certain things that I do a certain way, And I like if I'm practicing out of like say one of those books that I mentioned, I always play traditional grip.
Yeah.
If I'm practicing rudiments or things like that, I always practice traditional grip. I don't really practice that kind of stuff, match grip. But when I play the drums, when I play the drums set, I go back and forth depending on my, what I want to do,
A lot of the greats have. I mean, you'd see Tony flipping it around, flipping the stick around. Even Buddy once in a while, and Gene Krupa played a fair bit of matched grip,
Absolutely.
and why not?
Absolutely.
I think Tony maybe really popularized the idea and more of the French grip where the thumbs are, man. He just looks so cool
Right,
doing
right.
that, man. I think traditional grip sounds, it feels really different. It caresses the drum.
Hmm.
And match grip, if I want a little softer of a sound, I'm going to play true. Hey, it's actually the right way around here now. This is good. So we're
Yeah.
not backwards. It's right. That is. I wanted to ask you. You ended up. You had a scholarship, a full scholarship for classical percussion. Am I correct?
Yeah, right.
So what happened? Where did you go to school? What did you do? And why didn't you pursue a classical based career?
Let's see. I did that because my parents wanted me to go
Oh
to
man, this is so
school.
great. That's so honest. I love it, man.
Yeah, I did that because my parents wanted me to go, and I got some help financially. So of course,
Yes.
my parents were by no means
Take it.
wealthy. Yeah. So and so I didn't mind doing it because been kind of I had been kind of doing that. Taking private lessons and being in school, and then it was kind of the music program was quite good in the school system that I came up in, and so there was all these opportunities for young musicians to further their experience by auditioning for all city band, all state band, all county band, regional band. They had all these different things that you'd audition from all the different high schools or intermediate schools within the area, or the state or whatever. So I would enter in all of those competitions, for to be in the percussion section and the regional band or the all state band or all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
so I would do that, and I was in most of those bands, for years and over the years that you're in school, and my band director basically kind of uh, moved us into the trajectory of going to pursue your career in music further
Okay.
after graduating from high school. And so between him and he was a great band director named David Solomon, and between him and my parents and just the way things were going, I just thought, yeah, I'll do that. And actually, before I went to school, uh, my band director had taken myself and maybe 3 or 4 other students that he felt like they had a chance to a professional musician. We went to this school, and one of the things that was going on while we were there, kind of touring the school, was a performance of the conservatory orchestra, and one of the pieces was the Creston Concerto for xylophone and orchestra, and it was
Okay.
played by this guy who I didn't know at the time, named Howard Curtis. And I just got to mention him because he's one of my mentors and still is. And he teaches at the Gretsch Jazz School in Austria. And he's kind of
Oh,
like a big brother to me. Anyhow, uh, this cat came out first half tuxedo played this Christian concerto on xylophone with the orchestra, and he got like 5 curtain calls. It was
Wow.
and I was like, "What? Who was this cat?" Then intermission, second half of the show was his jazz group, and he came out in like maybe a dashiki and sounded like Elvin.
Wow.
So the first thing was that I got to meet this guy, find out who he is, and then I want to come to this school and get this kind of thing. And it didn't turn out like that exactly for me, but I did finally meet him, and turned out he lived like 45 minutes from me, and I took a lesson with him as to audition for this position in all-state band or something, and after the lesson, and it was like an excerpt from a orchestral snare drum book or something, so I played it. I had worked it up, I played it, and he kind of looked at it, and yeah, blah blah blah, yeah, make sure this crescendo here, you can make that more dramatic, blah blah blah. And I was like, solid, okay, And then he said, okay, have you heard Jack DeJohnette? And that was it, man. And that was he's one of the people that kind of just inspired me and guided me into doing what I do right now. We're still very, very, very close today.
That is wonderful. It's amazing how many of those life-changing moments or game-changing moments, I know Dom Famularo likes to say that, game-changing moments, and they're key things that will direct, give you a trajectory somewhere to go, and we've all had those, and we can all recall them. I'm telling you, this is wonderful. So now your career, when did you move to New York, actually?
87.
Okay, so was it the urging of Al Foster?
Well, not entirely, but
okay.
Prior to my moving to New York, I was playing. I had once I got out of school, I went back home and was playing jazz, and then I got an opportunity to join a top 40 band.
Okay.
And I joined. I thought, well, this is an opportunity to basically help my financial situation, because it was a 5-night-a-week gig, house band, playing in a nightclub for dancing.
Nice.
Learning, you learn 2 songs off the radio every week, and it was steady. And I did that for almost 4 years.
Wow.
And so on my days off, which were Sunday and Monday, there was an airline service called People's Express, and the flights were dirt cheap, and I was making money. My rent was nothing. Making money, I had no obligations but myself, and so I would fly up. I met Joe Henderson, the saxophone player, and at that time I was really heavily into Al Foster, and I met Joe Henderson, and he said, "Well, man, I'm playing with Al. We were talking about Al, and he was telling me, yeah, Al's great. You got to check. You've never seen it. Oh, man." So he told me, he said, "Well, I'm playing at the Vanguard in New York 3 weeks from now, blah, blah, blah. You should come up." So, of course, I did. I met Al. He was like the sweetest, most welcoming guy, and still is.
Yeah.
And then I started subsequently going up quite often whenever I would see that he was playing. And at that time, he was playing at the Village Vanguard or somewhere in New York almost every week, because he was, Anyway, so I would go up, and after a while, he was like, "Man, you keep coming up here. Why don't you just move up here?" Because he let me sit in at the Vanguard the first time I met him with Joe.
Wow.
Which was, I was stupid enough to accept the offer.
That's awesome.
Anyway, it was a mess. But anyway, so I and then I had met Art Blakey too while I was down. I'd met Art Blakey, and I went to see him play. And at the end of the night, I wanted to speak with him, and so the band split, and he was hanging out to have something to eat, after the gig. And I asked him if I could join him, and of course he said yes. And then he said, "Well, where do you live?" He got that kind of, where do you live? And I said, "Well, I live in Newport News, Virginia." He goes, "Why?" And then I go, "Because, my parents, I don't have my own place yet. I'm still living with my, He says, "If you want to play the drums, you got to move to New York." And so that was in my head too. Art Blakey telling you, emphatically, you got to move to New York. And then Al Foster, and these are two of my,
Yeah, it was time.
you know,
You're
yeah,
ready. They knew
yeah.
you were
I
ready.
wasn't. Well, I don't know if I was ready, but it helped. Sometimes you need a push to do something, because if you overthink it or think that you're not ready, you'll just keep on saying it, and then next thing you know, you're my age and you never did it. So I'm glad I did it then. And it's thanks to them. Those two guys. I mean, come on, man. If they tell you to, if they give you a little bit of encouragement, it's you don't want to. You don't want to turn the blind eye to that.
Can you see these comments here, Billy?
No, I can't see anything.
Okay. Well, Tessa wrote a couple of things. She wanted to know, was that with O'Teal? Was that maybe the top 40 band? Was that with O'Teal?
That was, yeah. O'Teal Burbridge, a great electric bass player, was in the top 40 band, and he was, he and his brother was in the rival band to us. We were all playing on the Strip in Virginia Beach, yes. And they played down the street at a club that had 5 nights a week dancing, doing the same thing we did. And his brother was in that band as a keyboard player, but his brother, who passed away a couple of years ago, unfortunately, was an unbelievable flute player too. I mean, this guy was when he was 20 years old, he was playing like Hubert Laws, like on that level. Just wow. It was a toy in his hand. He could do anything, and that's when he started to play keyboards, because that was another challenge. He had already pretty much. Anyway, and then O'Teal was like a unbelievable bass player. But we were playing in this band, and we just played the music that we had to play. But outside of that, we were both, he was very much into Weather Report, Mahavishnu, and so was I, and all the other stuff too, all the other music that was happening. Yeah.
Well, that's really no different than a lot of us here. We have I play in a tribute act, in an ABBA tribute, which was supposed to be a super busy year in 2020. Mm-hmm. But we all love jazz and funk and fusion, and our bass player and guitar, actually everybody. I'm the lousiest one in the band, I always like to say, and it's great. It raises. Well, it's great. That's where you want to be. You want to learn, but this is what we're listening to and being inspired. And we have our day job, so that I can play the day job gig, so that I can, afford to pay the mortgage and whatnot. Yeah, but yeah. I still love doing the tribute scene. But when you got to New York, how do you get from arriving in New York in 1987 to playing on over 350 records? Like, how is that? You were mentored by some of the greats. I'll list a few. We've got Benny Golson, Horace Silver, Joe Henderson, Buster Williams, Bobby Hutcherson, and many, many others, as well as having your own musical situations, your own. So I want to get to that, but can we start a little bit back to maybe some of the early mentors and some of the early folks that you played with when you arrived in New York?
Yeah, well, first of all, man, I'm so fortunate to have been able to participate with those people that you just named, because they were I don't know, 20 years or so more prior to that, for its entirety of 20 years. These were the people that some of them I never dreamed of playing with. Some of them I did dream of playing with, but I thought it was a real long shot. When you're 14 years old and you're laying in your bed with your little cheap record player and you're listening to Horace Silver. Did you think that you would be playing with him? No, but
Amazing.
but you're like your eyes are sparkling with the thought of perhaps that happening. You know what I'm saying? And so so all these people were. I wish I could go back and play with them now with this headspace, because I was a young person and I had a different headspace. Not a bad headspace, but I had a different headspace. When you're 20, you think a lot differently than you do when you're 30, 40, 50, 60. You have a whole nother way of looking at life and thinking about yourself and how you relate to a certain situation and that sort of thing. So yeah, all of them were mentors. I mean, playing with Horace Silver was like a dream come true. All of them were dream come trues, man. All of them were dream come trues, and all of them, I learned so much, and all of them were mentors, and all of them taught me how to play in many different ways. You mentioned Buster Williams. Buster Williams is one of the great bass players of our time, of any time. And so I could say that, in his case, for example, at that time I had been playing on the scene in New York and been basically playing with my peers, my people of my generation who were also great bass players. But this is another level, right? And drums and bass, they gotta have their thing. You know how it is in your band. You and the bass player, right? You gotta, and if it's not, if you're in a situation where it's not, you know what I'm saying? So Buster was like this guy on this way up there on another level. And so I'm not, but I want to be.
Yeah.
So anyway, playing with him really taught me how to play, because he played with all of the drummers that, for the last 30, 40 years prior to that, he had played with all of the drummers, Billy Higgins and Tony Williams and Al Foster and Ben Riley and Billy Hart, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on and on. And so playing with him really kind of just made me like stronger, just in terms of my cymbal beat, my groove quotient, whatever you want to call it. So those kinds of experiences, playing with somebody, basically just playing with people that are way better than you is the best thing that you can do.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Especially if you can make it work, at least. And I've had the experience of playing with a great band for one night, and then I didn't get a second opportunity because it was a fill-in kind of gig. But I wonder, would I be able to keep that gig? I know it's one thing to get a gig, but would I be able to keep that gig? And as I've gotten older, I think, I would recognize perhaps some of the things that you would need to do in order to do that.
Yeah.
And you obviously did if you were able to hang with a guy like Buster Williams. Would they give you any kind of feedback on the bandstand while you were playing or after the gig? What happened? What kind of things?
Well, sometimes, everybody's different. Everybody has a different personality, and band leaders have different ways of leading. Some lead by just example. Some they hire you because they see something in you and they just give you, just like do your thing, and if it's not going to work, it's not going to work and you won't be there. But if it's working and they see that it's has potential and can develop, then they might just let you just do your thing and hope that you'll realize what works and doesn't work. But I'll tell you a funny story with Buster in particular. we were playing, we were on tour, and we were playing somewhere, and I was feeling inadequate. Let's just say I was feeling like, oh man, I'm just not. I'm not. This isn't. I'm not doing what I. I'm not doing what I want to do. I'm not the way I want to do it. And
Okay.
so we're playing. You know, there's people. I remember Toots Stillman's was in the audience. This was in a place in Holland, uh, and and so we got through playing, and Buster just looked at me and said, "Come on, man," like that, and I wanted to just like shrivel up and dig a hole behind the drum set and go in it. But it was like he was just basically saying, "Man, come on, man,
you can do it.
let's get this going." And then it kind of clicked, and then from then on, man, we were like, and that was a good feeling because So that was an example of someone saying something to you, but in a way to not to belittle you, but to just give you the encouragement to reach for greater heights. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
so that was a pivotal moment for me, and I'll be forever indebted to that opportunity and that experience that he let me have. And
He saw something in you, and he knew it was in you. You just had to have enough confidence in yourself, maybe, and let it come out. What an awesome story, man. How old would you have been? You figure then?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe 29, something like
Still
that.
young enough,
Maybe
still
around-
developing,
Yeah,
still developing,
yeah,
and
20.
you're still getting better, no doubt.
Well, I didn't practice this morning, but after this, I'm gonna get to the drums.
Yes, me and you both. We have some questions here. Patrick asked if there was anyone that you would like to play with that you haven't.
Yeah, I'm sure there are.
Hmm.
I mean, I like playing with. I like the opportunity to play with as many people as I can. I mean, there's all kinds of people of all ages that are that are inspiring to me, that I hear from time to time. That, man, I would love to play with that person sometime. And some people, you listen to and you admire from afar, but you don't know if you'd want to play with them, but you just like to listen to them. And that's happened for me. I'm a fan of people that I don't think I would really fit in playing with them, but I love listening to their music, and I love what they do, and I love what the drummers that they use do. And but I know that that's not really what I would really want to do, but I can still appreciate it. But yeah, there's a lot of musicians that I would love to play with, and maybe I will. Maybe I'll maybe if I ask them or something.
Anthony McKelly, a terrific jazz drummer from up here in Toronto. I'll put this comment up. Billy, remembering hearing you play here in Toronto a few times over the years, such a great influence, and you helped me formulate how to play original music rooted in tradition but forward-thinking. Fellow Gretsch artist Anthony McKelly, terrific drummer, and a wonderful compliment.
Yeah, thank you, man. Yeah, that's very, very nice. I don't know when that was, but probably a long time ago. But I'm glad he was into it, man. So I hope I get to hear him play sometime.
He's fabulous. When did you
sure.
start writing music? How old were you when you started composing?
Oh, wow. Well, I kind of been scribbling away over the years. I don't consider myself a writer or composer, but we all have ideas in our head,
Yeah.
and it just takes jotting them down and coming to grips with whether or not they're submissible or not. You know what I mean? So it's just it's been going. It's like an ongoing process for several years, and I'd like to do it more, and I should do it more, but
There's only so many hours in the day, right?
yeah, right. When the spirit moves you, then and so I think about it. I think about it quite often, and think about I should do it more. But uh, it's just one of those things that you have to be moved to continue to
Right. Do you
do
write on
on a regular
piano?
basis. Yeah, I think about melodies and screw around with melodies, like most people do. You hack away at
Yeah.
melodies. You hack away at
Hacking away, right?
a
For me,
feeling, a sound, a mood, a groove, a bass line maybe, or a harmonic progression. All those things. Everything that comprises of what music is. Harmony, melody,
mm,
and rhythm. Hmm.
mm-hmm. Another question here from Craig. What kind of things do you still practice?
Oh wow, that's a good question.
It is a good question.
Yeah, I practice the things that I've always practiced, and I practice things that I want to get better at. But I practice a lot of the things that I've been practicing since I first learned. When I first had a little bit of formal kind of insight into what you have to do to be able to play the drums, i.e., just the organization of singles and doubles. I teach at two schools and I teach privately, so I'm involved in that, and I see a lot of young drummers come into a school academic situation, or if it's just private lessons, and uh, these basic things. I don't know about you, how you feel about it, but there's basic things that you just have together in order to be able to facilitate whatever it is that you're trying to do ultimately. Whether it's whatever ideas you might have, you have to have enough facility to bring these things to fruition. And that's what all of our heroes, these guys right behind me and all around me on these walls, they all were very, very good. uh, they could play their instrument really, really, really well. And so the combination of that facility combined with their audacious imagination is what we are attracted to, and what gives them their individual personality that we hear them play. You see, so Max Roach doesn't sound like Elvin Jones, who doesn't sound like Billy Higgins, who doesn't sound like Jackie Jeanette, who
Yes.
doesn't sound like Billy Hart, but they all have a certain thing in common. At least this one, for sure, is that they can all play the instrument well enough to facilitate their ideas. So I constantly am
Mm,
working on my
great.
facility, not so much to be, Mr. Chops person, because I'm certainly the antithesis of that, but just to be able to play the things that I want to play. And so I know what I want to play, but
Mm,
can I play them? So if I develop what I think I need to be able to facilitate the concept or the creativity that I have, then that's what I do. So basically, the short answer is just doubles and singles and combinations thereof, because that's what we kind of play as drummers.
Do you practice with music? Do you practice just drums or a combination of both?
Combination of both. I put my iPod on shuffle, or I have a ton of uh, CDs that I've compilations of just stuff, you know. Um, and then I practice on the pad, watching TV or whatever, sitting around. And then I practice. Sometimes I just play the drums, just sit down and just play the drums and see what
Mm.
happens. And
That's great.
just enjoy the drums as by themselves. And then I'll practice on things that I want to strengthen. I want to strengthen playing fast, or strengthen playing brushes, or strengthen soloing over song forms or soloing over time signatures or playing in different time, all those kinds of things that we are faced with as professional musicians in the real world in a playing situation. You know, you got to be able to do those things well enough so that you can keep the gig, like you were saying. You know,
it's true, right? That is wonderful. Now, what was your first set of Gretsch drums? Since this is the Gretsch afternoon drum break, let's talk about the wonderful drums that we both play and we both love. What was the first kit? You said we were 19. You said when you
I
got
was
those?
I was 19, no, 18 or 19. Yeah, somewhere around there, 18, 19. I had gone away to school, and on my summer breaks, I worked in a place called Busch Gardens, which is kind of an amusement park. And
Yeah.
and I was in the, believe it or not, I was the drummer in the Fest House band, which is a band that played
Awesome.
polkas and clarinet polkas and, you know, Edelweiss, and, you know, it's a beer hall. They serve sauerkraut and Wiener Schnitzel and big things of beer, and, you know, the
Wonderful.
waitresses would walk around with these big, and people would, you know, and it was a show. So we played for dancers. We marched out. Da, 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 da. I mean, I'm even on the record, the Fest House band record, which is probably worth quite a lot of money. But anyway, so we played, you know, and I had a snare drum and a bass drum and a sock cymbal and a crash cymbal, and we played, you know, marches and waltzes, and so anyway, and this was my summer job, between the school years, freshman year, sophomore year, blah blah blah. And so it was, you know, I worked 7 days a week. We did 6-7 shows a day. And you know, and the shows were 35 minutes, and so my goal was, you know, like I said prior, I up until this point, the drum sets that I had they were fine, but I wanted a Gretsch drum set because all of my heroes at that time, all the people that I was aspiring to be like were largely Gretsch guys, because back in those days, in the 60s and 70s, there would be these advertisements, and there'd be a picture of Max Roach, you know, kneeling down, and the drums would be set up around him, and, you know, he looked hip, and, you know, suit and tie, and he looked so hip, and then A.T. with his big mustache, Elvin and Tony Williams, and you know, Philly Joe Jones, Art Blakey, all those guys. And they were the guys I was listening to. They were my heroes. And so that sound, that image, that look, that was what that's me. That's what I want. I want that sound. I want that look. You know, and there were other drums that were good. And at that time, there was only like maybe 6 or 7 drum companies, you know, Ludwig and Gretsch and Slingerland and Rogers and Premier, which was, you know, kind of rare. Zimgar, Zimgar was the Japanese drums, but Sonar was basically out of the realm of possibility because they were so hideously expensive at that time. But I wasn't interested in them anyway. I was interested in Gretsch because that's what the cats that really, for me, were synonymous with what Gretsch was. And to me, what they are now, I think people are attracted to Gretsch really because of that. You know? At least I certainly was. So anyway, I saved up some money and I ordered a Gretsch drum set. I still have it, and it still looks great and sounds great. It's a
what color? What finish? What's it?
They were in the catalog. It was called hand rubbed walnut. So they were like a dark walnut. They were beautiful.
Yes.
They still are beautiful. And I ordered, and I was really into Tony Williams and Lenny White at that time. And so I ordered basically their set, but except the bass drum, I got a smaller bass drum. I got a 20, a 12, 13, 14, 16, 18 floor toms. And and I ordered them with no. At that time, the tom-tom mounts were famously not reliable. They were like two
Right.
poles that went up like that.
Yes.
So I
remember.
ordered at that time. The best hardware was by Rogers,
Yes.
Rogers drums.
Swivel-matics.
So I ordered, but I ordered the memory lock. The memory lock,
okay.
the
Yes.
memory lock. And so I got them, man. It took like, I don't know, 2 months or something to get them. But I was working, I wasn't, and I don't think they didn't come before I had to go back to school. So I remember they came after I had to go back to school. So my parents drove them up.
Oh, beautiful.
And it's still in they had little plastic bags that said Gretsch in red letters all over them. And I was the happiest human being on the planet when I got those drums. And so I still like I said, I still have them, and they're incredible. They still sound. I mean,
I bet.
Whatever. They sound incredible.
How many Gretsch sets do you have now? Tessa also wants
boy.
to know. I have a feeling that she knows you pretty well.
Yeah, I don't know why she's that. She already knows this answer because
yes,
she wondered that why I have so many. Anyhow, I have the set that I just mentioned, and then I have a Caribbean blues set that I got maybe like 82 or 3, and then I have a black wrapped like nitron round badge set from the 50s.
Oof.
And I have a champagne sparkle. They had a drum set back in those days. I used to have all the catalogs, like the Gretsch catalog, the Slingerland catalog, all the, that was the thing to do. I don't know how old you are, but okay. But, back then it was kind of the thing with drummers. Drummers were really into the drums, the whole drums, the gear, we were into that,
Yeah.
We were into looking at the back of the record covers, and we didn't just want to see the guy's face. We wanted to see the drums,
especially
man.
The drums. Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to see the drums, man. I wanted to see, when you see Drums Unlimited, just looking at Max's drum set, man, or looking at Dear John C., looking at Elvin's drums, that was looking at Billy Cobham's Fives drums when you open up the thing or something. And so, the other drum set that I was going to mention, I have a Champagne Sparkle, and it was in the catalog, and it was called the Progressive Jazz. Yes. And I have that same set from this. I guess it's from the 60s. It's a round badge, and then I have a yellow Gretsch set. Same color as Tony Williams, and Elvin, and who else had one of those sets? Alphonse Mouzon had one.
Yes.
Another guy, Freddie Studer, I think, had one in Europe. Yellow, the yellow. Because the first time I saw the yellow drums, I think was Tony and Elvin both had yellow drums in the 70s, and I always thought that was just hip. I thought that was like wow. So
it's still hip. It wasn't. It still is. It's happy. It's they call it Tony Williams yellow, do they not?
I guess they do. I guess they could call it Tony. Well, he stayed with it. Elvin eventually moved on to maybe even another drum company after he had the yellow Gretsch. But right. Because the first time I saw Elvin, he was playing Camco by Tama, and I miraculously ended up spending a whole break between sets with him up in his dressing room, just he and I. And I was a drum geeky kind of, and I asked him all those kind of stupid questions like, why did you leave Gretsch, blah, 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 blah. And
wow.
He was like, oh, don't worry, you got good drums. I love Gretsch, but I was in a situation where I had to, make another, and, blah, blah, blah. Who knows what, he didn't go into detail about it, but.
Right.
But, he had moved on from that. But, on all those records that I had, prior to that, they were all, any of the photographs that I saw of him or on the backs of the records, or in a magazine or something. It was Gretsch, plus the ads and stuff. So I just associated him with Gretsch, and I wanted that sound and that look and the whole bit, you know. And it was a thing. Like I was saying before, it was a thing. Like my students now, they're not into drums like we were.
Right.
Do you experience that?
Yeah, and I'm trying to. I'm like, I've got some catalogs here. Take them home. One of my students bought one of my Gretsch kits that were here to facilitate, and they love it. So now they're Gretsch. But man, it's not like it was, right?
It's not like it was, and I, you know, I don't know if it's because, I mean, for me, when I saw those advertisements of those guys and their drum sets, that was huge.
Yeah.
That was huge. Plus the sound that went along with it, the soundtrack of that were the records, you know. And so I just, you know, and that's what I wanted. And it was, the gear was a big part of it. You know, the gear was like, I know, you know, I know it's not totally about that, because those guys could play on any drums, and they ended up doing that. But
Yep.
but still, I mean, when you hear that sound on those records, you know that those are Gretsch drums, and so it's in your head. And it's like, so when I go to hit a drum, I want it to sound like that, and I know that if I have Gretsch, it's going to.
It has that sound. There's many times before I go to bed, I will come into the drum room and tap the tom just so that I hear that twang right near when I'm going to sleep. It's my wife's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, She goes, "You're weird." I'm like, "Well, it's special. Nothing else has that twang.
Nothing
that
else.
Tone.
Yeah, I have some other brands of drums too.
A Gretsch artist?
I don't.
What else do you have?
I have some Sonar Phonics
They're beautiful.
that I was a very fan of when I was, you know, in the '70s when I first saw Jack DeJohnette. That was a whole thing too. The sound of those drums on those ECM records and the whole thing. It's different, but it's a good sound. And I have a Ludwig Jazzette, and you know, like, you know, and that synonymous with, say, Roy Haynes and that whole thing. And then I have a set of Slingerland. I was endorser for Slingerland for a while in the early '90s, when they were really kind of making an effort to reach out to the jazz drum community. So there were a bunch of us that all were with Slingerland, and they're actually really good sounding drums. They're not top tier in terms of construction, but they somehow they sound incredible. I don't know why or how, but they went out of business, but I still have some drums, and they're nice. So between those and then the Gretsch sets that I mentioned, I'm pretty well stocked.
You're set now. I think Tessa would probably agree to that.
Okay.
When did you become a Gretsch artist?
Well, it kind of happened I don't know how it happened or why it happened, but it happened. I was doing one of those Kennedy Center honor shows on that they award, like the highest medal of arts kind of honor that they award every year to people. And one of the recipients was Sonny Rollins, who I had worked with prior. And so I was asked to be a part of the musical tribute to Sonny Rollins, which was an unbelievable experience and honor. And so they wanted to know what gear you wanted. And so on my website at the time, it mentioned that I had Gretsch drums, because that's what I had. And so they contacted Gretsch and said, we need some drums for this event. And then Gretsch contacted me and said, do you want to endorse Gretsch? And so it kind of worked out, I mean, I already had been playing Gretsch since 1978 anyway, on my own. But so this must have been like 2011 or somewhere, 2010, 2011. I can't remember exactly. So it's been about maybe 10 years or something. So, and I was thrilled, of course. And so they provided me with a set of drums and a different set of Gretsch for the rehearsal and for the performance. And so that was it. That was it. It was on TV. And
That'll do it.
actually the other drummer was Jack DeJohnette. And
I think I remember this. I love
yeah.
those awards. And did Steve Jordan, believe it or not, he was playing with Sonny Rollins as well. He'd done some gigs in Toronto. And I thought, my friend went and I didn't know Sonny was coming to town. He said Steve Jordan was the drummer. I go, he was not. And surely enough, Steve Jordan was playing with Sonny Rollins.
Yeah, I saw him with Sonny. After I had been with him, I was playing. We were both. I was trying to think who I was with. I think I was with Carla Bley, maybe, and he was with Sonny after I had been with Sonny. And I went and saw him on my night off. And so on this thing, it was Jack and Sonar hooked him up, and and Gretsch hooked me up, and then we were together for like 4 days, and it was incredible. It was an incredible thing to hang with him, and we were talking about. He used to play Gretsch too back in the '60s. He didn't endorse them, but
Right.
he used to play them in one of those early records with Jackie McLean and Charles Lloyd and all that stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Man, amazing that you're part of such historical, and you play your own part, so to speak, in this music as well. I know we all talk about the jazz giants that we revere, but man, you're in the thick of things, and you have been for many, many years. So congratulations on your success, and we're going to wrap things up really, really soon here. And I want to thank you for taking the time. I know today's been a busy day, and I want to thank Paul Wells. He actually did have a comment here. Maybe we could end with Paul's question here. He said, "Great interview. I'd love to hear Billy talk about his drum and cymbal sound, what influenced him, and how he developed a sound that is both traditional and uniquely his." That's a great question, and thanks again, Paul, for connecting Billy, and thanks, man, for being just so great to work with and to just and I appreciate your time.
Yeah. Thanks, Paul. Wow. Well, I guess I did what everybody else does, man. You're attracted to something. When you're attracted to something, there's no question as to why you wouldn't follow it. So there's all of these people these drummers that we kind of mentioned, have they're kind of like data entries into your conscious or your subconscious, and so we file these sounds, these fingerprints, these sonic identities of these people, right? And so all of them, you amalgamate all of these sounds in your head, and invariably you try to make these sounds whenever you touch the drums and the cymbals, based on what you're hearing in your head, based on what you like, based on what you're trying to emulate or imitate, to a certain degree. After a while, that imitation and emulation becomes more of just what's the word I'm looking for? A seed. It's just a seed for something to grow from, right? So these sounds that I like, that I love, after going to hear all these people play and be around all these people and befriend all these all these guys that were like my heroes, I ended up becoming really close friends with. And so when you do that, you kind of get an insight into these people as people, not just as the drummer, but the two are totally intermingled, because the way that they are is the way that they play and the way that they sound. The way that they walk is the way that they play. It's the way that they sound. When the first time I ever saw Max Roach.
That's great.
He completely just destroyed me just walking on the stage. For that 20 seconds, ladies and gentlemen, Max Roach, curtains open, he walks on the stage. That 20 seconds basically took my breath away. And he hadn't even set up the drums yet. But when he sat at the drums, it was just an extension of the way he carried himself to the drums. And the two go hand in hand. And then when you get to meet him and talk to him, and all of that comes out, you see. And Elvin was like that, Philly Joe Jones. You can't play like them because you're not them. You can't be them, but you can be inspired by them and be influenced by them and emulate them and borrow from them, whatever it is that you can, whatever little sprinkles that you can of their magic dust can get in you. And then when you go to play, they're there. They're in there. They're in there. It might not be like extrovertedly. So in some cases, people copy to a T. I've never been able to do that myself, man. I've wanted to. If I could play like Philly Joe Jones or Tony Williams or Billy Higgins, I'd probably do it because I love it so much, right? But I can't. Yeah. So I just do what I can to kind of, borrow from what I can use from all these people. And if it helps to season my particular recipe, then that's it. And then I have to accept. That's the other part, is you have to accept what you are and then cultivate that. That's very difficult because, in our stages of development, I think we have to come to grips with how we sound. Especially you listen back to the record and you go, oh man, I want to sound like Billy Higgins. How come I sound like me? But that's something that you have to come to grips with and accept and then cultivate it. So that's
what a wonderful, inspired, and inspiring answer, man. You gave me goosebumps. My face hurts because I've been smiling this whole time, just gathering all of these nuggets of wisdom and experience from you, and just this interaction. Even though it's virtual, man, I'm feeling something in here, learning something, and I hope the viewers here in Cyberland here, I'm sure that they have gained an awful lot today. So, man,
great.
Thank you, Billy. I appreciate it. We're an hour and 17. Thanks so much.
Oh, my pleasure, man. My pleasure. Thank you for doing this, man. And I'm glad that you're bringing the drums that we love into the forefront because, like I said, man, I've been playing Gretsch drums since 1978 or 79, man. And I'm never gonna switch.
No.
There's the drums I identify with them. And I've always wanted to because all the people that I cherish and love did. And so thanks so much for doing this, man. I hope it turns more cats on to the drums.
Yes, me too. And all the best in 2021. Hopefully we get things under control. It's pretty crazy out there now. Hopefully we get playing maybe by summer, summer, late spring, summer playing. Hopefully.
Yeah.
And if I get to, hopefully I will keep my eye open on where you are playing because I'd love to see it in person and experience it.
Yeah.
So.
All right, please say hello when you do, and I'll look for you too, man. Send me a heads up if you're going to be in the area playing, man.
Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you, Mr. Billy Drummond. It's been my pleasure. Stay tuned next week for episode 37, the Gretsch Afternoon Drum Break. Everybody, take care. Bye now.
Bye. See you, Neil. Thank you.
Thank you.